So yeah, so this one there's not a lot of teaching on this piece. So if you saw my Marco Polo beginning of the week, this one's all about setting up for the last part of the year now. So as we hit September, October, November, definitely growth months. December can be depending on your mindset and what you're doing there, but definitely these next three are. So want to get into today kind of based on the goals you set for the beginning of the year. Where do you where do you feel you are now, knowing we got 4 months left in the year, right on track? Maybe you're overachieving, maybe you're off track, whatever that is. So where are we at? We want to look at what things have gone well. So some things have likely gone well, and you can share that with the group too, so we can all work on those things and benefit. And then where are the things that maybe we're a bit short on, and if we don't make improvements over these last 4 months, there's no chance of hitting that goal we had. So want to kind of go through where those things are, more about questions, more about where the challenges have been, and so we can all kind of pour into each other. So how do we collaborate on these ideas to get the engagement, get the conversion, get the referrals, wherever the pieces are that you feel might be missing, or how to engage the team in these goals so it's not just you driving the bus all the time. That's what this call set aside for, and it will help us again set not only like coaching calls, but likely what C4 masterminds are through the balance of the year to make sure we hit those goals. So if we're going through with these guys, if you're looking at the goals you set for the beginning of the year, are you guys feel that you're right on track, off track, overachieving?
I guess I'll go first. I've been my goal was to hit 300 personally per week, and I'm not there yet. I think I got up to 250 at one point, and I'm around 200 right now personally. With both clinics, now we're running about 500 per week with the three chiros. So, yeah, that's been from the goals at the beginning of the year. That was not part of the goal this year, but so but yeah, so a happy detour.
So let me ask you, Steve, what do you think? So let's talk specifically about your office at Generations. What is the main thing that's holding you back? Where are the bottlenecks?
I probably have to do some minor renovations and to make my between rooms a lot faster, and my ability to exit the room faster as well too. So
What about procedurally? Let's say you didn't do any renovations right now. What procedurally holds you up?
I know we talked about day ones the other day, getting a little faster on those by eliminating some of the garbage ACAC stuff that we have to do. That could definitely hold or help me be faster procedurally. We're always tweaking that. So, in meeting with Elevate, meeting with Devin and all that kind of stuff, there's definitely some things that we've learned from there that we're implementing as well too. That's making me a lot faster. So we're able to squeeze in more new patients in shift and stuff like that. So yeah, procedurally we're doing pretty good. And we just need to hone in on a few things.
So flow wise, then, just to give you perspective, I was doing 3 to 350 with closed rooms before I renovated the old office, then moved. Like talking flow wise, is your flow that is it strictly an adjustment, or is it that day ones take too long so you can't book? Like, is there a reason you can't see? Is it a flow reason that you can't get to that many people, so people don't like hanging out, or is it because you don't have enough people coming in, converting, and referring?
Probably a big one would be the referrals. Yeah, like if we had more referrals and higher conversions, then for sure we could we definitely see more as well too. Like we're not fully maxed out on my schedule yet.
Yeah. So
yeah.
that's where the energy should go. Yeah.
Yeah.
have you, I know you coach with Colin a lot, and maybe you guys know this already. Have you looked at what your conversion percentage is?
Yeah, it's about 25 to 30%.
Okay.
Yeah.
25 to 30 of people who start in day one or people who show up to DR?
Day one.
Okay. What would you feel is the biggest gap or the biggest excuse, I guess, you get as to why people don't start care? Because if you like, you'd like to be, even if it's mostly external, 50%,
Yeah.
right? Even if you changed it 10%, like your volume would go up a easy 50 to 75 a week if you just increased your conversion by 10%. So,
The biggest one is finances.
okay.
Yeah. I get people quite often saying like, I've got like $50 in my account. Like someone got mad at us the other day because the rent check bounced because it was like a $118 payment. And they thought they had put it on pause.
And this is actually a good conversation, not just for yourself, Steve, but for Phil and Tony, anybody else who's on the line. I think it's still just us, but uh here's an example. I'm going to pre-frame this by saying, so one of the greatest entrepreneurs of modern times was Steve Jobs. Obviously, he's passed away now. However, Steve Jobs grew Apple into a company that was very unique because it was all based on principle. And everything he did was based on principle. So Steve Jobs, when he talked about the new Apple computer, he didn't say, oh, it's got this much memory and the processor is this and it's this much speed and it can do this versus it was all about principle. It was all about having a unique experience. It was all about solving people's problems when it came to working on computers or working online. It was all about what's in it for them. And I think that really applies to chiropractic so much. And the fact that if we can base everything we do on principle as opposed to what we're doing and what we're, the process of the how we're going to get them better. But and I'll tell you this from experience too, is that we had a lot, like Brantford was a very impoverished area. So we attracted a lot of people on welfare. There was a tremendous homeless population, and we actually had people with no homes coming in to see us. And we had a minimum standard of what we were delivering, and that was $125 a week. And we would do that for people that could show or prove to us that they were somewhat impoverished. But there were conditions in the fact that they, first of all, knew why they were there, and they would refer other people. They would never miss an appointment without at least phoning. Because I'm going to tell you, most of the homeless people had cell phones. Like, so they had money. It was just a principle and priority thing. So our goal is to make sure that we explain to every single person that was there how serious the condition of subluxation was, and that if it was unkept or uncared for, untreated, if you will, that it's getting worse. So people knew that this is not a thing that they can put as a low priority in their life, and they knew that this is a thing that they had to find the means to do it. We'll be fair. There has to be fair exchange, but they knew that. So, and I think in doing that, it was great because it gave a lot of people the motivation and the incentive to do that. So I would say in your situation, those people that, the guy that bounced the rent check or whatever, and anybody who's telling you they can't afford it, it's not that they don't have the money for it, it's that they don't have the incentive, or they don't have the priority uh, in range to put their health and their life ahead of other things that they spend money on. And that's all it comes down to, it, in my opinion. And I can, again, say that from experience.
So let me ask you this, Stephen, because I probably have a similar, I don't know that it's true. I can tell you in my mind it's true. I say it if it's true, but it's never the money. But with what Colin just went through, what I just said, does that make you feel like I'm gonna have to sell them more? Or what do you feel when we talk about that part of it?
I don't worry about selling per se. My thought was I need to be a lot more certain. That's the first thought that popped in my head.
So one of the easiest ways to do this, so a lot of people that I deal with, this is what I deal with my team a lot. This is what I do personally. Um, is when you're looking at the person, this is why you want to have a great, like you want to have the hot button before they show up for their day one. You want to be reviewing who that person is when they're coming in for their day two, so everyone on the team knows. You're reviewing it again for DR, so everyone knows what's going on, and it should be creating a picture in your head, and whoever, anyone who holds a valuable position in that patient experience, if it's checkout or whatever, but there needs to be that picture, is to what happens to this person if they don't start care. So whatever, this person, 30 years old, whatever, single, trying to find a job to work or trying to make ends meet, maybe they got a kid, whatever that is, a picture of what they are. And they deal with back pain every day. Well, what happens if that just continues to get worse? What does their life look like 10 years from now? Versus what does that look like if they start care here and get the correction that we deliver to everybody else? Right? By day two, it's like, well, now we got x-rays. Now we know there's a crushed disc there. There's no curve, like whatever that is, right? Where does this progress if they don't move forward? And it's not that it's gonna have you come in, because I'm not a salesperson. I'm not heavy-handed. I'm just very certain as to what it is, and it becomes very black and white in my head. So I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm just telling you this is what's going on. And this is what you do to fix it. If you got a budget problem, where's the middle ground we meet on? So that you can get what you showed up here for. Because if you do nothing, this is exactly where it's going.
This is honestly, this is good. And it all comes back to one thing, is that it's your certainty as far as how severe is subluxation. And if you're practicing chiropractic to correct subluxation and you are totally convinced and certain that subluxations kill people, and if you find a subluxation in a patient, it's crushing their nerves, it's not only causing their symptoms, it's affecting nerves going to organs, and it's a degenerative process. And it happens very quickly, that they're on a path to disease and death. And if they don't get this corrected, what's their life going to be like? And that's always was my question. If they say, well, I can't afford it, well, what's going to happen if you don't get this corrected? You're going to get sicker, healthier or sicker, and lead them into that answer. And if you're getting sicker and sicker over time, how's that going to affect your finances? How's that going to affect your family? And are you getting closer to life or death? And they were the questions. And if they were still at that point willing to say, no, it's too much, then obviously you're not the right fit for our office. But most people by that point would go, okay, yeah, I got to do something. Okay, well, let's work it out. What can you handle? $125 a month? Okay, great. We're going to get you started at once a week. We're going to get you started at a couple times a week, whatever it was for that person, at least to get them going on some level.
So I'd look at that whole conversion process, Steve, and just look at where the weak language might be, the lack of urgency might be. And again, it's going to be that certainty, that understanding in you and your team, and all of those pieces, from booking the day, the new patient, that day or the very next day, getting them back to day two within 48 hours, DR within 48 hours, like all those pieces. But then also in DR, do you walk them through these stories and these cases so that they understand that if this doesn't get corrected, that it only gets worse, right? So if you do that in front of a group, it holds way more power, way more impact than one-on-one. And then in the one-on-one, I'm very similar to Colin. Like we talk about, okay, so what do you see? What's it causing? Do you understand why you're getting XYZ? Our major concern about this, if this doesn't get corrected, what do you think happens? And I asked a question, like, well, it gets worse, or I get this. Exactly, right? And again, it's not to scare it. It's the truth. But if they don't verbalize it, they don't understand it, they're looking at it as a bill versus something that's going to change their outcome. So they could get a better job, or they maybe don't have to spend as much money on all these things they do to take them out of reality, not to deal with the crap they're in.
I think I'm actually, if I think about my doctor's report, I think I'm missing that part right now about asking them, if this doesn't correct it, where does it go? And then laying that out for them, right? Or letting them answer it, I should say.
Yep.
So if I give you this one piece, so when I explain subluxation, this is exactly how I do it, and I'm pretty sure I stole this basically from Tony Nalda. I probably modified it a little bit so it's me. But when I'm explaining that, I'm like, hey, so when we're looking at x-rays, if you don't understand x-rays, number one thing, you got to understand what normal and abnormal is, right? So I just hold up a spine. So obviously the spine's bent from the side, that would be abnormal. From the side, if it's a C shape, that would be abnormal. So if there is abnormal shape in the spine, is there going to be pressure or no pressure on your spinal cord? And I'm quiet. Well, there's pressure. Absolutely. So with pressure, you're getting 100% life from your brain into your body or something less than. And if it's less than, on the inside, are you building more health or disease over time? Well, it's disease. What do you think the ultimate consequence of that is? And 90% of the time, someone says death, right? And it's like, I'm like, something's going to shut down early. What would the intelligent thing to do be? Everyone's like, fix it. Make it simple. Like I imagine most of us on this line, maybe Colin's probably the one that isn't. I would say the rest of us, we are very detailed people. We like to over explain is the nature. But if you do that, like I found, like got too technical, lost. Keep it super simple. And if people can understand that, they can see the picture. And again, I don't answer the questions for them; they answer them, right? And they're like, and it makes sense. And once it makes sense, they feel they understand what's going on, and now they can make a decision. Now they can decide what they want to do versus us getting all technical and this and that. Maybe tell them what's wrong. We get all, turned on by like the x-ray and stuff like that. But if they don't understand what it means, they're not moving forward. And then I'd also, if you don't in your DR, show a failed case.
Okay.
Like I got a doc, well, happens to be a medical doctor, but I got an x-ray of a guy who came in and has got a fusion. And I talk about how he got to that fusion before he got to our office. Why that was there. He chose cortisone shots. That numbed the pain. Right? You got to give people both roads so they understand, like I'm picking one or the other here. Which one do I want to go down?
See, this is good. So the ultimate outcome, if the quicker, I think the quicker that we can help the person to realize and admit that the problems that they have in, the symptoms that they have are being caused by an underlying problem that we call subluxation. And if they do have subluxation that we have found, that is leading them to a life of disease and death, the quicker we can get them to admit that and understand that and realize that, boom, practice just all of a sudden goes up. Like, because we beat around the bush so much, and I can, again, from experience, we beat around the bush so much, we want to over explain things and hyper explain things and make them feel good and make them like us and all this stuff.
And make ourselves feel smart. Don't forget that one, Colin, right?
Right. Yeah. And we dilute the message so much when our doctor's report literally could be 5 minutes. If we can get right to that point, subluxation, presses on nerve, that's causing your neck pain, back pain, headaches, whatever you came in with. But my concern, it's affecting nerves that are going to your organs. It's shutting those organs down. And if that process keeps going, because it's not stagnant, it's going to get better or it's going to get worse. If we're getting adjustments, or if you're coming in for chiropractic care, it's going to get better. If you're not, it's going to continue to get worse, and it gets worse very rapidly. And if those nerves to those organs cause those organs to shut down, are you getting healthier or sicker? You're getting sicker. And if you keep getting sicker and sicker, are you getting closer to life or closer to death? And if they answer those questions and that goes through their mind and they realize that, all of a sudden, then, oh, okay, maybe I do need to take a loan. Maybe my family can help me. Maybe I do need to sell my car. Maybe I do need to cash in my RRSPs to do this. And all of a sudden, yeah, I've got the money. And oh, this is that important. Yeah, I think my whole family does need to come in. Like it's just a total mindset shift because now their whole paradigm changes and their priorities just totally go upside down.
Like Stephen, the same people that are telling you no, or the same person's like, oh, you cashed my $180 whatever check, and so my rent check bounced. If those exact same people in the middle of February in Calgary, their furnace died, would they figure out the money to get heat back on in the house? They all would.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's something to look at, because like that's small, right? They don't understand that this thing is that's leading them. Like there's a reason so many people end up in their 60s and 70s with a life they never wanted for themselves. Like everyone wants to be healthy, right? Like no matter what, I think everyone knows logically, no matter what goals they got in the future, either they don't get them or they're not going to enjoy them with their health. So everyone wants to be healthy. The challenge is so few people know what health is, so they miss the mark by a little bit. But you stay on that path, 5 years, 20 years, 30 years. This is why so many people are sick and diseased and not living the life they want to, because they've been on the wrong path for so long. So it's like your office is where they get straightened out. This is where they actually get to their goals, where they have like that outcome, that future. And the more certain you are and your team is, and I would say for you, it sounds like there's probably some certainty improvements, but some wording improvements maybe in day 1 and day 2, but probably a big part of day 3 as well, just allowing to paint the picture. And it's not that you're telling them or convincing them, you're asking them the questions and they give you the answers. It is quite elementary if people understand and just follow the flow. Like that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say leave your office exactly as it is. Do not do any renovations, and work on those pieces for the next 4 months.
Yeah, 100%. Let's shift gears here. So, Phil, you're unmuted. I can see you're unmuted there. What do you think is the biggest roadblock from your office getting to the level that you want to get, or where it hasn't gotten to?
Yeah, I think, to follow up on the doctor's report is you guys have been after me to do it, and I'm complacent with where I am, but I want my office to do better. And I think Dr. Diana is currently, she says she's going to have her doctor's report ready. Oddly enough, I was working on my doctor's report, and I'm going to cut it down because it's up near an hour in length. I think you saw it a while ago, and or at least a copied version of it. So I'm decreasing the time on it. I think the certainty thing is a one thing that I don't need to get better at. I just need to deliver it better, though. So, and I would probably say Steven's in the same boat. We both need to maybe deliver it better. But I'm sure he's certain that he wants his family adjusted for the rest of his life, or the rest of their lives. The part that I want to ask you guys, since you added your corrective care, especially for Brian.
So hold on, just before we get into that, because there's something I want to address first.
Okay, go for it.
And it's going to be a big part of my talk when we get to Orlando next week.
Right.
When you said the complacency.
Yes.
So I would recommend for you, for action steps, go and look at what is the average of health right now for people in North America. You need to start digging into that, start looking at that. And then start asking yourself the question, is that the world I want my kids to live in? Is that the people I want my kids surrounded with? Is that the people I want my kids hooking up with, maybe to, creating a family with?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easy, and that's a big piece. Because I was asked, why am I talking about this? I'm like, because it's easy to get complacent. I'm not sure I'm the best person to deliver the message I'm bringing, but I know it needs to happen, because it's easy to get comfortable. It's easy to be okay. It's easy to get complacent. But the reality is the world's in a shithole right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so we can either be okay with it and determine that, hey, I'm fine with my kids living with that. I'm fine with my kids getting together with people who are going to end up there, or I'm not. Because on the line, like we're all okay. But is that the future I want for my kids? And if
Right.
it's not, I still got work to do. And if I were to die tomorrow, am I happy the impact I've made, or is I'm like, kind of left a bit on the table?
Mm-hmm.
So I like that part. I really feel is what you got to work on.
Okay.
Because that'll help. It doesn't mean you have to work harder, but there's going to be things that niggle around in the back of your head. You're like that get put off, because you've never thought about, well, what, again, the same path we talked about with Stephen, if I don't do anything, what is my community or the world for my kids look like versus if I do something? You can work the same amount of hours. It's just be doing something else.
No, it's good. As I'm transitioning out of practice and in more in management style, it's the complacency. I don't think it's complacent that I don't want to do anything. It's complacent that I'm happy of seeing the amount of people that I want to see, but not that I'm not complacent that people are dying and suffering. So maybe
You
I,
are the visionary of your office, though. Like
so
that part's got to stay, right? And that's why you got to stay engaged.
yeah.
Can
So
can I ask you, Phil, what's your mission statement? What's the office mission statement?
yeah, well, we've got it on our website, and I don't think I could actually say exactly verbatim what it says on there, but it's to help as many people achieve their maximum health is the bottom line of it. Yeah.
And so that, I mean, that's great. Maybe a little vague as
Mhm.
far as that could be. I mean, you could do that in lots of different ways. I mean, the public health unit says the same vision statement, but their mission in doing so is to vaccinate the whole world, right?
Right.
So you know what I mean. But that might be a worthwhile thing to discuss with your team. Like, how are we making a difference in our community, and what does
Right.
that truly mean? You know, and then you can say, okay, if you truly own your vision statement, then all of the procedures that you do have to fall into place to that vision statement. So then you start asking yourself, okay, you've had the intention, at least, you've said many times, of doing a doctor's report, but you haven't done it.
Yeah.
And you're doing some modification of that, whether it's a one-on-one or whether it's a video or whatever that is. And then you have to ask yourself, does that fall into my vision statement? And then, like, when everything falls in line, that's when you really get fulfillment. And when you have fulfillment, ultimately everything grows around you. Your relationships, your practice, your finances, everything grows. It's when you're incongruent in your whole fulfillment. And
Yeah.
Tony, I would say the same thing. This goes 100% to what you struggle with, and we've talked about this many times, is that when things are incongruent in your practice, your life, your team, your family, everything, that's when life starts to fall apart.
So, is it okay to get back to the doctor's report?
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
When you're doing the corrective care aspect of it, so I have done a few live doctor's reports, not with patients since we last spoke, but with new hires, basically.
Awesome.
I've cut it down. I cut it down to, anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes. So the corrective care aspect, how much detail do you go into? I've thought about doing a separate video once they sign on and they're engaged on correction. Is this something anybody else has done to limit their time? So I want to get the shortest amount of time. Like you said, could I just do it in 5 minutes? Is that practical? Like, so of all the
So I can answer the question quickly. I explain nothing different in DR other than what my care plan looks like. I explain nothing different in DR doing full advanced rehab versus what I explained before advanced rehab.
Okay.
The only change is the fee structure looks different, the care plan looks different, so that's different in DR. The only other change is on day 2, where we tell them, and we give them like the way I do it, I give them a choice. I'm like, so step 1's the same for everybody, and we talk about DR. Step 2, this is where you have a choice. The work we do here is very advanced. Your spine's going to physically change shape today. Option 2 is that exact same adjustment, but right after that, we do this advanced neurological rehab. And what it does is going to change your ligaments right after the adjustment. So you make a bigger change from the adjustment and you hold it longer. We see on average about a 50% faster change. There's a little additional fee to that of about $25. If you can afford it, I always recommend that because you get faster change with less adjustments. So what route do you think is better for you? That's the only thing different I talk about when it comes to advanced rehab, because if you are going to talk about more, you are going to get it almost impossible not to get very mechanistic, and you're
Yeah.
taking it from the principle. That's the only difference I have in my procedures, other than like doing the advanced rehab and stuff. That's the only discussion difference we have.
So, but when it goes to explaining and how do you do everything, was it just one of your team members that's doing it?
It's one-on-one. Yeah, we just take them up there. So on day 2, they set them up. All right, we're gonna put this weight belt on you. Right, you're just gonna hold it here. I'm gonna clip it up for you. We're gonna put this neck brace on. All right, step up on this platform. All right, it's gonna vibrate, look straight ahead. I'm right here, it's set for 5 minutes. If it starts to become bothersome before that, let me know, we'll turn it off. And as soon as it's done, we're gonna take an x-ray. And then when they've signed a care plan, they get their second setup. So there's 2 setups. It's just okay. So on day 4, then we don't do names like referrals on day 4 anymore. It's like make sure they're set up. On day 4, it's okay. You're going to learn the second setup, so you'll be completely self-sufficient at this point. And they just show them, okay, remember the first one? Need any help with that? No, I got it. Great, you're taken care of. And then here's the second setup. Take off that neck guard, and then it might be a head weight, might be an anterior chest weight, like whatever their setup is. Great. And when it's done, you hang it up. You're done.
So nobody
It's a
home care,
one-on-one.
like the home care kit with a neck traction, head weight. There's
So
so
that we do in a home care class.
okay,
It's one to many. We don't do that one-on-one.
okay. So all right, I'll get into the specifics maybe because this might not interest everybody. So I can get into those specifics on a call with you on maybe my next call.
That would be
But-
good for spinal correction call to go through procedures. Yeah, and here's the thing, get back to basics.
Yeah.
Confused minds will not buy. They will not make a decision. So, you know, and you see Brian make it very simple.
Yeah.
So what happens is if you haven't scripted it and made it very simple, we tend to over-explain it. That's just human nature. You know a lot, you know how to do it. You want to try to explain it and make it feel comfortable to the person, but in that doing, they're getting all totally confused and, oh, this is too much for me. I can't comprehend this. I can't understand it. It's too hard. So they don't buy. They don't make a decision.
Can I add one thing to that?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm right or wrong, Phil. I mean, I don't know if you go over much of your care plans, but one of this, again, things that makes us different is that you do that. And all I do is introduce it that, you know, along with your adjustments, we do these things. We're going to teach you that. We're going to give you this. And then they just know that you're different. And then, as Brian says, it's built into the plan, and then you can work on that afterwards.
Good point.
Like I say, I show before and after x-rays. And so they've already told them that our focus is on working on your posture. This is what they started with. They started care. They implemented the exercise and rehab. And this is where they ended up. When they're here, what happens is it like they have to keep coming. You go through all that stuff. That's as much detail as I go into it. And then when they see it in the plans, they see the home care built into that. I tell them when they come back next time, we're going to start with the in-office exercises, and we'll teach you all of that as you go along. That seems to work well for me.
Keep it simple.
Cool. This is good, guys. Good stuff. So Tony,
How long are the average doctor's reports now as I'm dwindling mine down? Like what do you
Mine still ended at 47 minutes yesterday.
So what I would tell you is shoot for 30. Shoot for 30. When you're deciding what to cut, determine the purpose of each part of the doctor's report. Because some of the stuff, like I used to have an hour-and-a-half doctor's report. Mine is, I think, 42 minutes is kind of where I end up all the time. There was stuff in it before that was for me. I felt I wanted to talk about it, but I realized it made no difference for patients. So you want to, like, what's the purpose of this story? What's the purpose of going through this? Right? Shoot for 30. If you are really good at engaging people, you can go a bit longer. But my measurement for that is record your doctor's reports and see if people are engaged the whole time. And if they're not, those are parts you either have to reword, cut out, get better at. Because if someone's lost, they're like it's might as well not be happening. So shoot for 30. And if you end up around 40, I'm not going to tell you to get less than that because I'm not less than that. So I can't tell you. But I know the majority in the network are somewhere between 25 and 35.
and again, no matter what time it is, if you haven't recorded it, that would be the first step. before you start changing it, cutting it, and see if you can watch it. Like if it's an hour long or 40 minutes long or whatever it is, can you stay fully engaged watching yourself for that amount of time? And if you can't, then nobody else is.
Just before you go into Tony's question, just for Ummer and Justine, what we were talking about is basically where the year started for goals. We're just going through kind of on track, off track, overachieving possibly, and then what do you think you need help with or want to work on to make sure that the last 4 months we help hit the goals. And then, Colin, I think you were asking Tony something before we.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, Tony. So Tony, what do you feel right now is the biggest bottleneck or bottlenecks in your office stopping you from getting to where you want to be?
Well, unfortunately, my list seems to be long and doesn't change much, but it comes down to congruency, consistency. I have moments where things go well, and then other moments where they don't, and they still get in my hand. And I guess what frustrates me more, which is the ongoing thing, is knowing how much I need to change and do and not doing them, from staffing to my own congruency, my habits. The beginning of the year was great. I was on record to have my best collections year, but then over the last few months, my costs have gone through the roof, and my cards are all maxed, and I'm collecting less money than I did in the 3 months previous last year. So now we're in a kind of a bit of a spiral. Last night we had a great night, good doctor's report. We had 5 people and their families. Their families were asking about coming in afterwards. Today, someone's actually stopped me and thanked me for being, the kind of doctor that would take the time to educate her and her mother about what was going on and all that stuff. So but then I quickly fall into that you got to like me again and fall off track and start becoming buddy and get away from all of that stuff. So as always, what I need to do is almost act like a 5th grader and go back to basics, minimize everything. I was downloading a bunch of scripts and stuff again today. Not that I don't know what's in them, but condensing everything down to the basics and be more powerful as opposed to just a chatterbox all the time.
So so if you had a vision statement for your office, a mission statement, what gets you up in the morning? Why do you go into your office every day? What would that be?
Well, I mean, without, the classic kind of, our mission is to adjust as many families to optimal health with natural chiropractic care and education. I mean, in reality, I think it's just I've been at this long enough. We know the difference between people who get care and don't. And my biggest successes in seeing people do great. I've had 2 women come in to me in the last 2 weeks with fibromyalgia. Suffered for a long time, and some of my biggest successes in practice have been with women who have lost 30 years of their lives, and now they're in a place that they never thought they could be. So that's the kind of thing that I always like. That's the kind of stuff that will motivate me. The person that I met at Walmart who I thought couldn't afford care and decided and came in and made it. Those are the things I sometimes have to remember, because then the other things will get me down, of course. And
Okay, so you see what you just did. You skirted the question.
oh,
So
did I?
I just
Yes.
want to know what is the vision statement? So if you haven't figured that out, let's make a very concise vision statement right now, and let's let everything fall into place after that.
Okay. Well, my vision is to educate people on the importance of taking care of their spine and nervous system and create systems that work for them so that they, their family, and our community can optimize their health and not just survive.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So if that's truly what the vision is, so let's figure out 3 things right now that can be changed to fall in line with that vision. So first of all, what's the first bottleneck in stopping you from educating people about the importance of their spine and nervous system in your community?
Over talking. So cutting back and being more direct, because again, personally, and then I have to videotape myself because I think I'm doing a lot of good things, but the results are not obviously displaying that. So
Okay.
there's
All right. So there's one answer right now. So videotape. Okay. So next doctor's report, you're going to videotape, right? So
Okay.
make sure you write this down. These are action steps. We're going to do this right here on this mastermind call. These are action steps. So number one, videotape your next 2 doctor's reports. Okay. And so can you do that and then upload them? Send Brian and I the link. Okay, Brian, you're taking notes here. Tony's gonna videotape his doctor's report, send you and me the link, and we'll go over it. Okay, so that's number one. What's number two? What's the second thing?
Trying to write things while I'm talking to you here, so I don't write them down.
Okay.
Number two.
Well, and let me address this because you just said over talking. Well, when you're over talking means you're far away from being what? Certain, but if you're over talking about stuff, you're far away from being scripted. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you can give me a script and I'll memorize it and I'll just add 50,000 things to it.
Right, exactly. But that's the problem, right? That just basically means you're not training on the scripts.
So
Because
Loman, one of the big things Loman said, and it was like, it would have been one of our marching orders when we all first joined ML, is the convinced and convicted say little. That's still burned in my brain when I first came to ML, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago.
And
So
I mean, the contrast in my practice personally in my staff, and there's no bigger difference in personality in that point than my predecessor and me. Like, you guys know who I'm talking about. He doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
And then I say more, and I feel like in some ways I'm thinking it's a disservice that what he's doing, but his results were better. So obviously I'm wrong.
Well, it's not that you're wrong. I would just say there's just successful business practices that you have not put in place, essentially, that you're ignoring to put in place. So if you put these successful business practices in place and train on them, you will have better success. I'm telling, like, it's very basic stuff. So number one is record your doctor's report. Number two is get your day 1, day 2, day 3 scripts and get them out and write them down. If you don't have them written down, you can download them off of our link, and go through them and start training on them. So how often will you train on them?
I'll read through them Monday to Thursday.
And I would even say, just say, like, even if it's once a week, like, I mean, let's be realistic here. And I want you to give me an answer, not because you want me to hear what you're saying. I want you to give me an answer that you're willing to commit to. So if you downloaded those scripts and said, I'm off on Tuesday mornings or Thursday mornings, I'm going to spend an hour going over those scripts and rehearsing them in the mirror. I mean, I think that would be reasonable to commit to. Can you commit to that?
Yeah.
So there's number two. Okay. So what's the third thing?
My huddles. You and I and Brian have talked much about my staff, and we're just disengaged completely. And so until they make a decision, I have to actively do more to make sure we're prepared for our shifts. And yeah, so huddles. So
when is your next huddle then?
This afternoon.
Okay, and what time is that at?
About 2:45.
And will you both show up at 2:45?
Yeah, she's already there.
Okay, so she'll be there. You're going to show up at 2:45. What are you doing to prepare for that huddle?
Well, first I got to go over the right mindset, and then I got to go over all the things that are happening this afternoon and make sure they're on the right track. We have a new patient that's right off the bat, so we've got their paperwork already sent in, which is a refreshing change with all the stuff we've been doing. So we got them prepared. We've got to review that. Go over the patients.
Okay, can I give you a suggestion?
Yeah.
So I'm talking about not what you're going to do in the huddle. I'm going to talk about what you do before the huddle. How about you look up what's right now, what's the most common medication you see advertised on television?
Oh, Ozempic?
That's a big one. That's huge right now. So why don't you find out the biggest side effect of Ozempic and take that in and share that with Claudette and say, this is exactly why we need to be rock stars at what we do to get people off of medications. Okay. And start doing that every single huddle. But do that. So look up Ozempic. What's the biggest side effect? and you're going to see it's, heart disease or it's actually been related to cancers. So take that into Claudette and say, this is exactly why we need to be better at what we do.
Okay.
Okay. And you start doing that regularly. I mean, ideally every huddle, but maybe even if it's a couple times a week just to get started. So there's 3 things. So record your doctor's report, 1 hour a week, train on your scripts. Number 3, prepare for your huddle and bring something in to inspire her to become better. Because if you just go in and tell her to do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, without inspiring her, nothing's going to get, it won't be a consistent change. So
Okay.
I think if you did those 3 things, boom, things start turning around.
The
Okay.
only thing on that huddle piece, Tony, because I know the huddle, it has to be, you can lead it and inspire energy, but if she's a dead fish in there, if you're like, there's things she needs to bring, you can also make a checklist. Just like if she's responsible for talking about who the new patient is, like whatever that is, make a checklist so there's something she has to contribute as well. If you feel it's like you push in one way and there's just a dead wall on the other side. So it's there, then you can start sharing of energy, and it's not that there's no way she can't know about it. It's like, okay, we go into huddle, I report these things, you report these things. Make it a huddle, make it a team.
Okay.
Brian had a couple of real good one-liners today. I think you used the term niggle before. It niggles in the back of your mind. I've never heard that before. And then the dead fish comment. So that was real awesome. So we got a few more minutes here. So Tony, I think that's awesome. But I appreciate you guys sharing. Like this is good stuff. I mean, this is, I think, very valuable coaching time here. And honestly, if you put some of these things into place, you're going to have success. Like you can't not have success. So Amr, Justine, you guys want to chime in here? We got a few more minutes.
I'll say hi. Sorry I haven't been participating, but I am at the Brampton Fall Fair, so I will show you our booth.
Cool.
Nice. That I'm kind of setting up with. So be a big week, probably an 80-hour week, because I'm here, no other doctor, so I'll be doing 12-hour days on the weekend. But looking to grow and not give up on doing wellness booths. We haven't done one since 2019, so. But we did them for 20 years here. So just getting everything organized.
Good for you.
Fantastic. Great.
Mm-hmm. So we got a couple SAMs and, scales and massage gun, because I never did a massage gun before, but they do that in the US where my daughter's at with Dr. Ryan, and it got people in and talking. So I said, well, I have enough to try with a massage gun and, organizing all the staff. So it'll be a big weekend.
Gosh, I haven't done the screening for years, but I give you credit. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of hours. You can see everybody is kind of setting up today, but yeah, it's probably 10 hours of prep to set up to get everything organized.
For sure.
So yeah, my staff members just going to get the scanner. So we'll have scans from just C7 up, posture checks, balance scales. They get a score. And then, of course, an offer, $49, they can schedule their appointment.
So one thing, so what we're talking about, Justine, is we're talking about things that you can recognize that are stopping you or have stopped you from reaching your ultimate goals, or perhaps goals that you set early in 2024. Is there one bottleneck in your practice or one thing that you want to address that has slowed you down or stopped you?
But I'm definitely working on training my other doctors, because I'm taking more time off to see my own kids. So it's putting in more training for the docs, actually. And I find it's very hard to change their ways. And so it's trying to figure out, because every time I leave, I have a crash of about 100 visits. So yeah, just working on training the other team members so there's not so much crash. The internal referrals just drop when I'm not there. Like social media, all that stuff goes on great, but the internal referrals drop. So
how are you going to do that? What would be one action step?
Training videos for them that I send them, creating importance and just getting them excited about it, because otherwise they're just coming in, doing the adjustment, and they do a great job with the adjustment, but that's all they can do. And then sometimes I just got to realize they have limitations, and practice will have ups and downs, and accepting that too.
So that's a great point. Like, how do you get them excited or inspire them? What do you do to do that?
Patient stories, videos, also just telling them the truth about like what happens when I'm not there. Like that, we need to all be working together. So I mean, they're paid very, very well. So that's part of the position too. Like that's part of the expectation. So yeah, it's I would say that I haven't put enough effort into it, and going to continue putting that effort in.
The one thing I would give just on that too, Justine, dealing with different personalities, is figure out where their strengths are, because just the way where you've had success, like you said, they're just different. They might not be able to do that at all. Figure out where, like, what gets like their light bulb going off, what gets them excited about chiropractic, what gets them excited in front of patients, and then you having all the practice experience you have, then how do I use what they get excited about and the outcome we're trying to create and what they're good at? How do I create that pathway for them, which is likely very different? Like I find that with my associates, I got to teach them a different way than what I do it, because they're just not wired this way, right? Which is also why they're an associate, right? So that's okay, but it's like, okay, like where are they really strong? What do they really do? When do you see the light come on in them? And how do I get them to work in that gifting to get over there?
One thing we did is we had staff meetings every week, once a week. We had a 1-hour staff meeting, and there were times, like for most of our career, we had 8 to 10 staff members. After we kind of grew and hit those, our peaks in practice. But that was my responsibility, was to prepare for the staff meetings in a way that I could inspire the team. And my goal was I would either try to get them emotional, angry about something, medical, whatever it was, vaccines, whatever we were talking about. I would get them angry, and I knew when it would happen, they would start, getting irritated or start shouting out comments and whatnot, or I would make them cry. It was and I knew when I could get them to those two ends of emotion, I knew I got them. And that was every single week, that was my goal in the staff meeting, either get them angry or get them crying. And I knew if I could do that consistently, I'd build warrior staff members.
I think I do have pretty great warrior staff members. I mean, we do have a team of over 30, right? But yeah, I think you also have to, just kind of like Jared said in the meeting, Brian, is that sometimes you have builders and sometimes you just have workers, and you have to accept when they're a worker and they can, what their level is, and then work around that. And right now I have 2 doctors who are workers, but they're not builders, but they're steady and they'll stay 20 years. And so there's a value in that, and just training maybe other people, like other staff members who have more of an outgoing personality. So I've found that, okay, they have their role in their lane, and they're not really deviating from that lane, but they're pretty steady Eddie. They're on time, they show up, they do a great adjustment, like they don't rock the boat, they're positive. So okay, if I can't change the doctor, who do I change around them, and who do I pair them with? And that's what I've been trying to work with. I can train them, but I mean, if they've been with you 10 years and they're not changing, then maybe you have to say, okay, that's not going to change. What's plan B? What am I working around? How do I plan that? So working on that with new team members. And I'm excited to get back into booths and talks as we get going.
And then
we have
one thing.
Two Dine with Docs coming up. So the Fall into Health Pass, the Fall Basket going on. So I think we have like 5 events going on through the month of September, and 5 or 6 events through the month of September and October. So
one thing, here's to address this. This is really good, Justine, because, and I didn't know you had 30 team members, but here's the thing, is that if you look at your business as a company, if you're the CEO casting a vision for people, but you're also focused on your patients, that's 2 different roles. So it's probably worthwhile for you to pick out your most valuable team member, somebody who's got great leadership skills, to pass that role off to them, to inspire the team, to make sure that team is being raise the bar for that team. So you can focus on your practice and your patients, because those two different roles can be a dichotomy in your mind and really get you diluted.
Yeah, but it takes a while to find the right person.
For sure.
And then train them. So they've been doing that for about a month. But yeah, that is what I did.
Good for you.
I hope everything goes great. I gotta make some videos for everybody so they see what to do. Have a wonderful week, everybody.
Thanks, Justine.
I just
Bye.
Amr, I want to give Amr just a chance to chat here too.
We've been talking about this a lot. I have a lot of distractions personally that I give too much energy towards, and then that distracts me from staying on principle while I am on training shift and not showing enough appreciation to my team. So rather than being the leader that I need to be, I feel like I get too distracted and caught up in little things, and it's just counterproductive. Very counterproductive.
So what do you think? And I know we've talked about this many times, and this is good. What would be, let's just do the same thing and say, okay, what are 3 action steps for you that you can do, simple things to try to make that better or turn that ship around?
Well, like you said to Tony, I need to bring more heat to the huddles, I guess, like inspiration and some heat to kind of get everybody in the right mind frame. So I need to do that. I also have to actually tell my staff how much I appreciate them rather than just randomly say it. So I would like to do that. And I think even for myself and for my staff, I want to actually sit down and do war plans with them, because I feel like we're not being efficient. So like we talked about last week, I want to say, this is my shortcut. Why don't we try this? And what can I do to help you? Like, I really want to work on, I don't want to be like, hey, do things this way. I want like some active feedback. And then I want to say, let's do it this way. So I want them to feel like they can have an open conversation with me about that, and we can all be more efficient and productive together.
What else? What action step? So and let me address what you just said there. And I think so that's awesome. And again, I would say, and I said the same thing earlier, but it all comes down to vision. And if you can cast that vision and have a very concise vision statement, and then say, okay, is what we're doing fitting into our vision? And if it doesn't, or if it's too extrapolated, then how can we streamline it to fit into that vision? So we're all on the same page, we're all going in the same direction, and we know.
Yeah. So like, for example, I want to focus more energy, like with my staff, on internal referrals, like family, because like our mission statement is about letting families experience life fully alive together through spinal health. But then it's like, how come we don't have more families? So rather than getting caught up in all these leads and whatever, and it's all like, I'd rather focus on internal referrals. And even talking about, like, for example, like one thing I'm concerned about is how come none of the family members have been checked with the staff? That's something I'm thinking about, like why, so there's a disconnect there.
That'd be a great place to start, for sure.
Yeah.
But it'd be going in, you need to get curious first. That's not something you ask your team.
Mm-hmm.
You go in curious, you figure out what it is, and it shows up in a training. As in on DR checkout, if you realize, hey, no one's getting booked, okay, so we're gonna train on docs report checkout. And we do this, and then at the end, this is where you would ask, oh, Colin, I see you're here with, or you're here with your wife. When would you like to sit your exam? Right? Just like look where it is. You want to make sure that it's always like go in with that teaching leading mindset, not like that's wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's 2 things right there. So bring something into your huddles, some inspiration into your huddles, and then very simply find out in your quote unquote sales process, where does your team address the families coming in, children, spouse, whatever that is. So make sure that gets put in, whether it's after day 2, whether it's after day 3, where does it fit in the best? And just, this is our policy. Even if you just did those 2 things, I think that would be a huge win right off the bat.
I just want to echo that maybe Dr. Armour gets the same frustration that I got, and she's uh, doing the same frustrations that I would do the same things instead of doing what Brian said. I would do exactly that. I would say, we'd train on it and then I'd see it not happen. So I think it's a much better way to do it the way Brian just spoke. And, and even ourselves, we have to keep coming back to the training. Everybody that's good has to keep training though. You do it once and we think because we can do it at a certain level that's, better, but we just have to continually train till they get it right. Right. It's frustrating, but you got to do it.
But give yourselves credit. I mean, you've obviously built a great practice over the years, Phil and Ummer, for you to obviously be trained by Dr. Phil and go out and you're building a fantastic practice and it's growing. So there's always going to be these, every time you reach a new level, there's always going to be these bottlenecks. So we just overcome them. So small action steps and don't give yourself a hard time about it. It's fun. The growth is fun, but inspire your teams.
All right,
Anything else,
everybody.
you guys? Who's going to Orlando next week? Steven's going? Hummer, are you going? No, Hummer's not going. Phil, are you going down?
No, my son's getting engagement party.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tony, coming down?
No, unfortunately, I had a trip booked in January already.
Tony's not going, so we'll see Dr. Steve there. And I think Dr. Justine is going. She had to leave probably, but she's probably going down. All right, you guys. Well, hey, good call today. This was really good. So there'll be no spinal correction call next week, but I will communicate with all you guys about the end of the month, and we'll probably do something after seminar to come back and just have some inspiration at the end of the month.